Good morning, everybody. We will get rolling here in about 3 minutes, so if you could find your seats, finish up conversations. About 3 minutes, we'll start with the national anthem, and the ROTC cadets will come up on stage. Thank you. Good morning again. Thank you, JROTC Color Guard. Thank you, Kofa Choir. Awesome job. Guest singer, Mr. O'Brien from Gila Ridge. Welcome to Kofa High School, another professional learning day for us. I appreciate you being here. Please welcome Ms. Gina Thompson, Associate Superintendent, to our district.
Good morning, and after the choir has left, there are several seats up here, so if you're still looking for seats in the back, please feel free to come forward. Welcome this morning, and welcome on behalf of our superintendent, Mrs. Badone. Her priorities are definitely in line today. She became a new grandma again yesterday afternoon, so she is in Phoenix celebrating the birth of her new grandchild. So it's a very big honor for me to be able to welcome you and just say a few words at our annual event, the Professional Learning Day for Yuma Union High School District. It always strikes me that today is a day for renewal, renewing our energy, connecting with friends, honoring the profession that we have for lifelong learning. And just as our mission is for our students, it's about the every. At the heart of that mission, it really is about the every one of us also, the professionals that do the work that challenges, supports, and prepares our students. A day like today also gives us an opportunity to celebrate. While every day provides challenges, as we well know, we also live in a community that has clearly and loudly spoken on behalf and support of public education. The Yuma community recently voted yes, yes, our high schools, in the November 2015 bond campaign that will speak to school improvements that are necessary at every campus, as well as our Somerton community extending into high school. Prior to that, last year, our community supported the Joint Technical Education District. While we may be the last one in the state of Arizona to be founded, we certainly will be the strongest, as we well know. So we're very excited about STEADY coming to Yuma. Our Greater Yuma Economic Development Corporation, Yuma County Chamber of Commerce, Yuma Education Foundation, and the various community service groups continue to look for ways to support our teachers that come to our community and teach our students. But today we also celebrate our commitment and our stubbornness. We're stubborn to stay the course in championing equity for our students. I do think this is unique because equity for us isn't just a buzzword at the time of a political campaign. We truly seek and believe in a system that provides equity for students and for our teachers. It is what we see and what we feel when we walk into the classrooms, when we walk into offices, when we walk onto a campus. You can actually feel that, and it is essential that that belief is there as we provide hope, the hope that we instill in our students. The search for equity is what takes us out of the business of sorting, and it takes us into the business of educating every student. We have an over 80% post-secondary enrollment rate directly after high school as a district, as documented by the Arizona Board of Regents and the Institute AIR. So we didn't just make that up. It's actually documented and well-researched, and I'm sure they did it 2 or 3 times to make sure that they got all that correct. This does put our district in the top 25% of schools in Arizona, and it does not happen by accident. And quite frankly, let's be very honest, it certainly is not expected by those who look at our district from the outside. The successes happen with the courage, determination, work, belief, and yes, my personal favorite, stubbornness. It is a part of our culture, it is a part of our district, and it is a part of our belief system. When you continue to take yourself out of the business of sorting, that also includes predicting futures for our students, you also take yourself out of the business of judging. Students enter our schools every day with lives and experiences as unique as each individual. I did have the opportunity to hear one of our students speak at a youth town hall event recently. I was so inspired and reminded that we are not to judge, for every student truly is unique and has a personal story. I was not expecting Jessica's story, and it was so inspiring to me I couldn't resist asking her to speak with you all this morning and share a little bit of herself. Mrs. Lillian Campa-Serna, our assistant principal at Gila Ridge High School, is here to introduce our student speaker. So would you please welcome Lily to the stage.
Good morning. I'm happy to introduce our student speaker, Jessica Hurtado. Jessica has been a student at Gila Ridge High School, and during her high school career, Jessica has been involved in cheer, AVID, and student council all 4 years. Currently, she is our student body president. Not only is she that student that is involved in everything, she's my go-to student, our go-to student at school, but Jessica is also very active in local community service projects. If you would have asked me at the beginning of this school year what I thought about Jessica, I would have said, she's ready to go to a university now. Really, she is. I met Jessica 4 years ago, and we always had great conversations and great connections about our school, about life, about everything. I thought I knew her well. I never really took the time to ask her what she was doing after high school, nor was I really worried about Jessica, because she really had her life together. She was that perfect student that we all want to clone. In September, I actually had the pleasure of meeting the true Jessica. When she asked me to read her personal essay, because the previous one was really not doing anything for me, I asked her to redo it. It wasn't setting her apart. When she gave me the second personal essay to read, I remember getting my coffee that Sean had made, and I put my coffee down, and I could not get past the first paragraph because it reminded me of my life when I was in high school. Little did I know that I actually had a lot more things in common with Jessica. She was not just picking up my daughter after school every single day, but she was actually we were sharing a lot of things. My personal story when I was in high school. This is when I met the true Jessica Hurtado. I am very, very honored and pleased to have Jessica Hurtado here with us today. She will be sharing her story. Please help me welcome Jessica Hurtado.
Hello. All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Campa. And as she mentioned, I am Jessica Hurtado, a cheerleader, the student body president, and unofficially a part of almost everything at Gila Ridge. And if you ask someone at school who I am, they'll probably start by explaining everything that I do at Gila Ridge, throw in that I'm an inch away from being a midget, and most likely end with, she's got her whole life figured out. And my freshman year, I probably would have agreed with them. It wasn't until the weekend before my senior year, when I was on my way to the dentist with my family, when my mother mentioned that a university was out of the question for the next step in my education. Here's the catch. My older sister, Jackie, was soon starting her sophomore year at GCU, and I was being told that I wasn't allowed to go to university because funds were low. Although it isn't fair, in that moment, I had become appreciative of my 12 free years of education. And from that moment on, I knew that my goal was to get as many scholarships as I could to go to university. And although life didn't hand me any lemons, God gave me a seed, and it was my time to plant it. All our lives, we hear about many students in foreign countries that are not given the opportunity to learn, and how fortunate we are to live in a country that offers free education. Personally, I felt bad for these kids, but I was never really affected by it. I mean, why should I worry about a stranger's education? It was not until that Saturday morning when I felt what those kids feel every day when they tell them that they can't get the education that they crave. It feels like hiding your favorite snack from your family, and then when you go to eat it, all that's left is the wrapper. This time, I was thirsty for knowledge, but my older sister was already drinking from that fountain. I was devastated when my parents told me that I couldn't go to university, but then I realized that there are thousands of other students going through the same thing as I am. And at first, I was ignorant, just like I was in a vast majority of my teenage experiences. But this wasn't something that I could just put aside. I could go on about how I'm a minority and don't have enough money to go to college, but that story has already been told. I decided to do what would set me apart from everyone else. And as hard as it may seem to many high school students, I decided to do something about it. You see, it's always easy to make assumptions about students by the crowd they choose to follow, the slang they use to speak, and their choice of attire. But what we don't know is that the girl who smiles so brightly and struggles to keep her grades up, and the boy who keeps to himself in the back of the classroom share the midnight shift at a fast food restaurant to help with the bills at home. With that being said, I want to thank all of the administrators, counselors, and teachers at Gila Ridge for giving me the advice I needed to get through my high school career. So here's my advice to you. Step 1, challenge yourself and take the opportunity to build a relationship with a student, whether it be a mathlete, a jock, an artist, or even that kid. And you might even find yourself seeing a little bit of yourself in them. Step 2, make a connection between your classroom and real life. We don't want to know that we can use algorithms while grocery shopping. Tell us about how much you hated them and how much you still hate them and how they managed to get you through college. Step 3, don't let a typical teenage mistake or a bad grade define a student. You've been there too. Give them that extra chance that you would have wanted. Because although you think your first period hates you, your little words of encouragement and quirky teacher jokes have a huge impact on decisions they choose to make in the future. And as a student of the Yuma Union High School District, I'm here to tell you that we tend to forget how that we have the power to make this little town of ours great. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jessica Hurtado, your typical avid student, cheerleader, and student body president, and I still don't have my life put together. Thanks. Okay, thank you. And now I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Baruti Kafele, a recipient of the National Alliance of Black School Educators Hall of Fame Award, the New Jersey Education Association Award of Excellence, and the prestigious Milken National Educator Award. Principal Baruti Kafele is on fire. He has distinguished himself as an award-winning educator, an internationally renowned speaker, and a best-selling author. Please join me in welcoming him to the stage.
Good morning. I want to do this right. Jessica just gave a phenomenal talk, and when she stood over here, I think many of you, and certainly me, I wasn't sure that she had concluded. So I gave her the applause of one who's still doing the speech, but she was actually finished and used that as transition to introduce me. So now I want to applaud you, and hopefully you guys can join me the way that we should have done it. Congratulations. Excellent. I got so caught up into her message, I didn't prepare myself putting my microphone on. I thought this was Jessica's show, and I was just going to sit back and enjoy her. But I'm going to use Jessica's remarks as a good portion of my remarks for the few minutes that I'm up here. First, good morning again, everybody. I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be on this stage, and I'll tell you about that in a few minutes, but I've never heard of Yuma. I've never I've never heard of most places that I speak, but it's all good. It gives me the opportunity to travel around the country and meet great people and see what other schools and school districts and educators and students, most importantly, are doing across the country. So about 2 weeks ago, when I was booking my flight, I did what I always do. I went to a website, and you type in Google nearest airport to the city you're going. So I said nearest airport to Yuma, Arizona. And there was a little small airport here, but wasn't going to work for me. So the closest one was Palm Springs. So it said about 2.5 mile drive, but all sorts of flight delays and all that kind of stuff. You guys know what that's all about. So then driving here for 2.5 hours and getting to my room somewhere around 2 or 3 this morning. And now here I am at 8:30, and let me tell you something, I'm on fire. I'm on fire. I feel like I slept 8 hours. But, you know, going back to Jessica, what a phenomenal young lady. And I know that Jessica is not the only one in this district. I get that. There are phenomenal students all over the place. All of them, I might add. But in listening to Jessica, in fact, listening to her teacher said something that caught my attention in a very big way. I hope you all caught it. She said, Jessica gave me her personal statement, but the first one, but it didn't do much for me, she said. And then she said, it didn't set her apart. That caught my attention in a big way. It didn't set her apart. And I said, bam, that's what it's all about. And I said, just the statement alone set the teacher apart for me. But then I listened to Jessica's story. And she too used the same language about setting herself apart. And typically when I talk about setting oneself apart, the word I use to capture that is the word signature. We think about signature when we sign our name, our signature. But I also think about that word signature in terms of what we do. What we do as educators in this context. I ask you the question rhetorically, what sets you apart? What distinguishes you? Because despite the successes that you're experiencing collectively as a district, there are still daily challenges. There are still daily obstacles, pressures, and demands on our practice, on your practice. So what is that thing you do that sets you apart and enables you to be great at what you do every day? When I listened to Jessica's speech, her message, I said to myself, I really don't need to go on that stage. I can treat this as a vacation day and just take in Yuma. Because she said, I got a couple things I want to say to you. Number one, she said, forge relationship. That's coming from a baby. I know you big girl, but I'm 55, coming from a baby. She said, forge relationship. Regardless of if you perceive that they don't like you. That's what she said. She said, we're actually listening. She said it. I'm sitting there like, man, I don't need to go up here. Forge relationship. So in other words, she's saying, teacher, 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 do you know me? Do you know what it's like to be me? When Jessica came to me this morning, I stood up, and I'm only going to say this because she opened the door for me. She made me feel tall. I mean, I felt good about myself, man. Because, see, I'm a basketball fan. I felt like LeBron for it. You made me feel. So I stood up, and she introduced herself to me. And I said, man,
this young lady is sharp. She's got it together. She gave her message and she said, nah, I'm still struggling. She came out from behind the podium. I'm still struggling. So now let's go back to the relationship. Sometimes the package doesn't tell the story. In fact, oftentimes, the package doesn't tell the story because what I present may not be who I am. That's just some external stuff I put on to come to work in the day, to come to school, to go out into the world. But what's happening inside is what matters. Jessica said, get to know me. But then she went on and said something I thought was equally as powerful. She said, teacher, make learning relevant. She said, show me, I'm using my words, she said, show me how this lesson within this period or this block, that when the dismissal bell rings, it's still applicable to my life. She said that. See, how's this relevant? How can I use this? How can I take this with me through life to help me to get from point A to point B? See? So I'm saying the same thing, but I want to go back to this word signature. What sets us apart? Let me give you a little bit of my story. Let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm a guy from Jersey. Jersey's home. It's all I know. I was a principal in Jersey for 14 years and a teacher for 7. But I had this aspiration of being a speaker when I was in undergrad school. And I spoke a little every now and then, such as how Jessica did this morning. And at some point I decided I wanted to just travel around the world. But I had a very particular audience in mind. I just wanted to speak to educators. That's all I wanted to do. So in 2011, I left my principalship, which is my passion, my joy, my love, my everything, and just walked out on faith. And now for 5 years, I've been out here as a consultant and a speaker working with educators. But now let's rewind. I dropped out of school in 9th grade. See, I'm one of those kids, because Jessica referred to the other kids. I'm one of those other kids. I could never be a Jessica. I could never stand on stage at a podium before all these great educators and give a speech. Are you kidding me? I could never do that. I couldn't even walk up these steps to get here. I'd be afraid. I'd be nervous. I'm one of those other kids. So my classroom was in the streets of a city called East Orange, New Jersey. And you know what folks do in the streets when they have idle time. They do anything and everything. And that's what I did. My poor mom was so upset she lost her son. She used to throw things at me every day, shoes and pocketbooks and so forth. You've shattered my dreams. I said, Mom, I just don't want to go to school. I don't want to listen to these teachers, man. What do they have for me? They don't even know me. What do they have? What can they do for? What can a teacher do for me? Have you ever met this kid before? What can a teacher do for me? They don't know me. They don't know what I'm dealing with. So for an entire year, I'm just walking the streets. And then finally, my mother, crying every day, convinced me to go to school. So I went to school the next year to please her. I graduated in 5 years, Jessica. Couldn't do it in 4. GPA 1.5. That means I just showed up. I showed up. I'm that other kid. You met him before. So guidance counselor said something to me that just hasn't left me. Back in 1979, here it is, 2016, it's still with me. He called me down to the office on the last day of school before graduation. He said, "Have you have a seat, young man?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Young man," started pointing like this here, "you're never going to amount to anything, young man." And you know I was going to be up here in Yuma today. He didn't see it coming, right? But he said, "You'll never amount to anything." So I hit them. I went back to those streets, y'all. 5 more years. Jessica's trying to get into university. I'm in the streets. I'm not thinking about a university. I'm having a good time. But 5 years after that experience, I said, man, I got to do something with my life. I'm 23 years old. I got to do something. I'm talking about your students. I'm talking about some of your students. So I went on to school, got accepted. Told my mother, I got accepted to Kane University in New Jersey, but there's one problem with that. I can't pay for it. You got to pay the whole tuition, Mom. That's all right. I got you. I'll scrape, I'll crawl, I'll pay that tuition. I came out 2 years later with a 3.9, 4.0. And now folks said, how'd you do that? There's a word. Where's my screen? Just yeah, go backwards. I got it. There's a word up there. Attitude. I did that yesterday up in Wisconsin. This thing's in my pocket. It's touching the things in my pocket and went on and advanced it. So, but attitude. That's all. Attitude. When I became a teacher, folks, I said, I'm not worried about raising test scores. I'm not even worried about achievement. I said, what's at my core, what's at my center is that word attitude right there. I said, if I and we, meaning my colleagues as a teacher, can collectively transform the attitudes of young people. In other words, if we could get young people excited about themselves, excited about learning, excited about the prospects for their future. Just get them excited. Change the way they saw themselves, then we knew that achievement would follow. But if on the other hand, achievement was the focus and priority, and attitude took a back seat to it, then we knew that we'd continue to have young people who were underperforming in school. So we went to work on attitude. But there's this word signature I want to go back to now. Because toward transforming attitudes, well, let me give you my demographics. I led 4 schools over the years. 3 of my schools were about 99% African American, 1% Latino or Hispanic, 90% free and reduced lunch. We're talking middle and high school. Heavy gang infestation or influence, high crime in the community, low achievement. It's a demographic. Single-headed households led by the mother, etc. This is who we were. My last school was a high school where I had a larger Hispanic population of 30%, but everything else was the same. My gang presence increased because I was at the high school level, so we were at 95% of those boys members of a gang, Blood, Crip, Latin King, MS-13. So we had all that to contend with in addition to low achievement. I entered the school in 2005 and said to staff, we will be a national force to be reckoned with. We will be. We will be a school that serves as a model for others. How are we going to do that? Because we're going to focus on attitude. Attitude of students, attitude of staff, attitude of leader. We're going to make sure that the attitude is so positive that young people begin to look at life, young people begin to look at what we do, young people begin to look at education through a different set of lenses. But in order to make it happen, the signature had to kick in. See, you and I, let me give you a fictitious student, but he's real. You and I, fictitious but real. You and I have a student. That student was born into poverty. That student was dealt a very difficult hand at birth. That student has all sorts of challenges and obstacles in his or her life that some student in some other part of town just doesn't have, just doesn't know, just can't relate to. So now, this student, when he or she goes home every night, The challenges are so great that there are many of us sitting in this auditorium right now that if you had to change places with that student for just one day, you wouldn't survive it. I would venture to say you may not survive it for 1 hour. You'd quit. You'd throw up your hands. You'd say, I don't need this. Let me go back to my life, which is a lot more comfortable than this other life I'm representing right now. Well, see, the problem is that student can't walk away from that life. That is the life that student is living. That is the home environment that student is coming from. That is the neighborhood that student is coming from. So the question now goes back to Jessica. Do we know that kid? So if youngster is coming in with a certain attitude which is negative and destructive, if youngsters coming in with low self-esteem or with a destructive self-image, how do we connect with that kid to make that kid a believer in him or herself? Or do we conform to who we think this kid is? See? Young man, you'll never amount to anything. He didn't know I was going to write 8 books. He didn't know I was going to turn around 4 schools. He didn't know I was going to accumulate about 150 awards in the field of education. He just said, young man, it's not going to happen for you. What about that kid? You didn't tell him you didn't tell her that she wasn't going to amount to anything. But how do you get that kid to believe if I go up on the ceiling of the roof of this building and spread my wings, I can fly? See? How do you convince that kid? Well, this signature, I'm asking you to question, what is your signature? See, in other words, you hear this language, they say, that's her signature recipe. An athlete, that's his signature pitch. Right? In so many different scenarios, this signature this and signature that. Well, I'm asking each and every one of you, what is your signature move in that classroom that sets you apart? See, that distinguishes you, that becomes your go-to. And when you implement this signature, oh man, you're on your way. Things are going to be all right, as the song says. Let me show you my signature here. I went one too many. That's my signature. That's my signature. Without this signature, and I'm going to tell you what you see in a second, but without that signature, I wouldn't be qualified to stand on this stage. Not at all. I wouldn't be qualified to talk to any educators about anything because I wouldn't have attained the results. But because of the signature, things happen. Here's what I mean. Those kids are mine, but they can be yours. That guy there is me, but he can be you. And what I'm saying to you, any given kid is going home to an abject situation. Any given kid is going home to a situation that is just overwhelming, challenging, all these obstacles. And then he and she are coming back to school tomorrow. Here's my challenge, here's your challenge. How do I begin to teach math, science, social studies, language arts to that kid that's so overwhelmed that I can't focus on your lesson? Jessica mentioned, and a lot of times we as educators, we lose sight of this. Jessica mentioned the student that's working the night shift. See, I was listening to you. Jessica mentioned the student that's working the night shift in order to pay the bills at home. See, not so he could buy himself a new pair of Jordans, but so that he can help the family, so that she can help the family. So now I've worked all night And now I'm not going to get 8 hours of rest. I'll get whatever I get. And now I'm going to come back to class, and you're pumped. You spent the weekend crafting this lesson. You're pumped about this lesson, but I'm student. I ain't pumped about your lesson. I was selling burgers at the drive-in window all night. I'm not pumped about your lesson. And I'm tired too. And I don't know that this dream you keep trying to instill in me is going to manifest. So if that's who's coming to my classroom or to my school every day, I had to revert to signature. So in other words, colleagues, we're not going to have math, science, social studies, English, and all the other subjects. We're not going to do that until myself and each and every one of you has spoken life to our students. 3 objectives. I want to spend a few minutes before we start every day for 180 days, whatever the number of days of school. I want to spend a few minutes just inspiring, informing, and most importantly, empowering. I want that kid to feel empowered. I know Jessica probably sick of me calling her name at this point. But I was just so impressed. See, Jessica's inspired. I want to give you an example of what I want to drive this point home. Jessica is inspired. She didn't have to tell me that. It's evident. Jessica is informed. She's educated. She's enlightened. That was evident. But I want to talk about that third word, empowered. See, as educators, this is what we do. We inspire kids, at least theoretically. We come in and we motivate and inspire young people every day. This is what we do. It goes with the territory. But number 2, and then we educate them. We impart information. We enlighten them about a plethora of different things. That's what we do. But then there's this third word, empower. And many of us, we fall short on that word. See, empower means I can now turn the corner. See, I can be hyped up, inspired. I can be informed, but now am I ready to turn the corner and go out and get what's mine? See, empower. See, when I watched, when Jessica walked up these steps and took to this podium, I said to myself, there's an empowered young lady. She is not afraid to speak to a room of professionals. She's not afraid because she's empowered. And when we are very intentional, deliberate about not only inspiring and informing young people, but empowering them. I can't tell you the number of kids that I know who get so excited about graduation and senior year. So from the first day of school on, the focus is on 2 things, senior prom and graduation. Of course, the next move, but there's a heavy dosage of I can't wait for this prom and I can't wait for graduation so that I can be gone. But here's the problem. Let's make up a date. We'll call graduation May 20th, just for the sake of discussion. So on May 20th, students are excited. Family members coming in, folks flashing pictures, cameras all day. It's just a big day of celebration. Finally, I made it. Here's the problem. That was May 20th. May 21st rolls around. And that same kid that was excited, in too many cases, that kid is lost on May 21st. That kid doesn't know what to do. I've been in school 12 years, but here it is, May 21st. I don't know which way to turn now because that kid wasn't empowered. That kid doesn't feel empowered. That kid doesn't know which way to move now. That kid doesn't know how to open a door. That kid doesn't know how to influence somebody else to open it for him. That kid is lost. I remember in my earlier days as a principal, so many of them graduated, and then the next year, first day of school, all these former seniors are back at the school to say good morning and hello. Hey, let me tell you something. I saw you off back on May 20th. Bye. It's time to start your life. I don't mind you come and visit, but the first day of school? So I want to make sure that starting from the first day on, the kids are feeling inspired that I can do. The kids are feeling enlightened, educated, informed, but most importantly, kids are feeling empowered that I can do it. But where does that all stem from? Where does it come from? It comes from each and every one of us. This is what we do. I'm watching, I don't know how many football fans in the room, but I watched the Super Bowl on Sunday. The world kind of wanted Denver to win. They wanted to see this quarterback, Peyton Manning, go out a winner. Yeah, we got some fans in the room. Got some fans. But on the other hand, in just listening to the pundits and talking to people, it was like folks were like, they wanted Denver with their heart, but their mind said Carolina. Their mind said, man, that defense is strong. That quarterback is different, and all that kind of thing. And then the game happened. Well, when I watch sports, any sport, I don't look at it as a fan. It's very rare. I look at it through the lens of an educator. And when I watched that game from the opening play, I said, uh-oh. I see the will to win is much greater with Denver than it is Carolina. And by the time they got in the second half and I saw Cam Newton, the quarterback, a fumble, and I saw him stand and watch the fumble, I said, it's a wrap now. The will to win has overcome the S on his chest, right? So I know Cam would be upset with me if he knew this, right? So, but see, my point here is the will. See, first with students, how bad do they want it? Jessica talked about the financial challenge. Okay, and I listened to it and I said, I get that. I know a little something about that. But I know if her will is what it seems to be, she'll be in the university of choice. I didn't say the university, period. I said the university of choice. If her will is strong, see. But then let's look at us, our own will. How strong is your will to make sure that the other kid, see, is striving to maximize his or her potential? See. How strong is your will? How strong is your determination? Do you lose sleep at night over that kid? Does that kid keep you up at night with you thinking, what can I do differently? What can I bring tomorrow? How can I forge a more solid relationship with this kid? How can I demonstrate more sincere compassion for this kid so that this youngster becomes this believer in the possibilities? See? So these kids here, I guess I inherited them at something like, in terms of test scores in the 30s. And I said, we get ready to take this thing somewhere. So then we went to work on attitude. 4 years later, those test scores were at 100% across every subject area in terms of New Jersey State standardized assessments. And folks said, how in the world did you do that at Newark Tech in Newark, New Jersey? I said, very easy. We made them believe that they could actually do it. That's all. And we also got them fired up about doing it. We said it's just a test. It's not a big deal. It's just a test one day out of the year or a week. And then we got all the other weeks and all the other days to do all the other things that are much more important than that test. We just want to pass this test and get it out of the way. Them kids said, we got this. And they went on and took care of business. So the school has gone on to receive blue ribbon status, Title I distinguished school status, has done phenomenal things because of the transformation of student attitudes, said differently, because of the signature. The signature. What's your signature? What's that thing you do that just sets you apart? What's that thing you do that just makes you great? What's that thing you do that just makes you extraordinary? Extraordinarily better than you already are? Your signature. Let's keep moving. So, within the discussion of attitude, I began to attach the word gap to it as we do with achievement gap, opportunity gap, and got all sorts of gaps. I said, well, I want to focus on the attitude gap, because that's a serious gap, and that closure of that gap is the vehicle to close all the other gaps. So I said this attitude gap that manifests itself in classrooms across America, across the world, and I defined it as the gap between those students who have these three words, the will to strive for excellence, and those who do not. Once again, the gap between those students who have the will to strive for excellence and those who do not. Hear what I did not say. I didn't say the aptitude. I didn't say the intelligence. I didn't say the skill, the ability. I didn't say that. All I said was the will. See? How bad do you want this thing? What will you do to make it happen? So I said, teachers, in classrooms, there's this gap in the classroom. You got kids who want it. You got kids who don't want it. And then you got everybody in between. How are we going to close that gap? So that everybody that walks in here is excited. Everybody that walks in here is fired up. But then teacher, within our school on staff, we've got this gap as well. And we got some people in that building who believe in the most at-risk students. You got teachers that desire those kids. Give me the most at risk and watch me perform magic. See? I know those teachers are in this room. And then the opposite extreme, man, I don't know if I want them kids this year. Last year was a challenging year. I don't know if I want those kids this year. But I'm saying to you that when the focus is on how do I change that attitude. Now, a lot of times when I have this conversation in a workshop setting where we can get much more specific and much deeper, folks say to me, but Principal Kafele, you got to understand, I mean, the home environment is real. Neighborhood environment is real. Gang life is real. And they give me all these, it's real. I say, yeah, I get it. But that's where we come in. See, everybody in this room, including myself, I mean everybody in this room, at some point, we had a common thought. We said, I want to be a teacher. There was a because attached to it, though. I want to be a teacher because I feel I have what it takes to make young people successful. There's no one in this room that said, I want to be a teacher and I hope I can do okay. There's no one in here that said that. You said, I'm that one. You said it. I'm going to make that impact. I'm going to make a difference. Now, if everybody in the room had a student that you brought along today I'd want to recognize you all. I only know the one. So teacher sitting here with Jessica, I know how she felt watching her there. You know too. I know how she felt watching Jessica giving that speech. See, because I'm a strong advocate that when you see your students doing phenomenal, own it. Don't pass it on to the kid. Own it. Because there's something you did right that you want to build upon for everybody else. See? But if on the other hand, when students stumble, when students reach a low point, when students fail, own that too. See? Own it. Because when we own it, it enables us to look within at how we need to elevate ourselves so that we're not pointing the finger and saying, see, that's why he can't be successful because this didn't occur, because that didn't occur. No, we own it. There's something I need to do different in order for that kid to be successful tomorrow. So the will to strive is critical. Let's go a little bit further. Closing the attitude gap requires self-examination. See, in a much lengthier discussion about attitude, a lot of my emphasis is on us in terms of how we reflect, assess, and adjust. So here I'm saying the transformation of student attitudes through the daily self-reflection, self-assessment, and self-adjustment of our practice of teaching. For any athletic fans in the room, particularly football in this regard, NFL professional games are played on Sunday and then one game on Monday. But on Monday morning, those teams that play Sunday, there's a commonality with them. In their respective cities, they're in a room called a film room. You know this. And before they do any practicing, planning, or preparation for next Sunday's game, they're in the film room just studying film. They're in the film room analyzing, dissecting, reviewing, breaking down film. In other words, their game film, looking at what we did yesterday. Where were the pluses and where were the minuses? Where were the successes and where were the failures? What do we see? And now this becomes a basis of planning, preparation, and practice for the rest of the week. So I'm asking us in the room, how often do you go to your film room? How often do you study your film? How often do you analyze, break down, review your film? Now, I don't mean a camera in your room. I mean a mirror in your room. And I even mean that symbolically, a mirror. How often, colleagues, do you spend time just engaged in the self-reflective process? How often do you just run the video of your day? Just let it run so that you see the interactions that you had with young people, so that you see everything that unfolded in that classroom throughout the course of the day. How often do you engage in that self-reflective practice? I found over the years in terms of my own practice that engaging in that self-reflection performs miracles because it enables us to hit the pause button and just see ourselves in action, and which dictates to us what adjustments I need to make. So the self-reflection coupled with the self-assessment, the evaluation of ourselves. I say to teachers every day, no need to wait for an evaluator of record to tell us of our effectiveness. The mirror will tell us every time. We just have to use it. We've just got to assess us as it relates to young people. I'll give you an example. The work that I do and the volume of presentations or consultation that I do, I'm in hundreds of schools throughout the year every year. And I get to see thousands of kids who are just underachieving and underperforming. thousands of brilliant kids, I might add, who are either underachieving or underperforming or just failing. And then there's a question that I typically ask of staff. And I'll ask this question, but I'm going to keep it rhetorical since we're in a keynote format. The question is, by show of hands, and again, I'm rhetorical, you don't have to raise your hand on this one. Who are the ones in the room that can guarantee, unless you want to raise your hand, feel free to do so. Who are the ones who can guarantee that every single day, bar none, your students hear coming out of your mouth some variation of, young man, young lady, you are somebody, or you are phenomenal, or you are great, or you are going places, or you are headed for greatness, or some variation of, and I saw one hand just immediately, right? Immediately. See, here's what I'm saying. And this goes back to the signature. If you want me to be great, if you want me to be phenomenal, then at some point, teacher, make sure that every day you tell me that I'm phenomenal. Tell me that I'm great. Tell me that I'm somebody, because there's a chance, teacher, that if you don't tell me, I may not ever hear it. See, there's a chance. I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush, but there's a chance that I may not hear it. But what a powerful statement when one of the most significant people in my life, my teacher, tells me that I'm somebody, despite the numerous mistakes I've made along the way. What a powerful statement when this significant other in my classroom, my teacher, tells me I'm extraordinary. See, because of my years of, because of my school years and me not being focused in school, I don't have a teacher I could look back on and say, thanks, you turned on the light bulb. But when I got to undergraduate school, I do have 3. Professor said to me after I submitted my first paper, I don't know why he said it, but he said to me, pulled me to the side and he said, sir, you write extremely well. I consider you a writer. You write well. And I was in denial. I said, oh, no, come on. You got to be kidding me. Not me. He said, no, sir, you're a good writer. Let me tell you something, folks. To this day, this was in 1984. To this day, I don't know if he was sincere. All I know is he said it, and that's all that mattered. I've only written these 8 books because of that one man. No other reason. Because had he not said that to me, I would not have had the audacity to put my pen to the paper. Are you telling these young people about their greatness? I will tell you right now, I will tell Jessica in front of all these educators in this room, I don't know what you want to do with your life, but you are certainly a teacher. You're certainly an educator because it came across. See, you have that ability. See, when we make sure that for that youngster that doesn't know who he is, what she is, and then we step in and remind youngster, oh, but you've got some extraordinary skills doing whatever. So then I had to take a course in 1985 called Public Speaking 101. Oh my God. I cringed on the first day. 15 students in the room, and the professor said, he said to all of us, you have to give a speech, 2 minutes long. I said, not me. I waited for everybody to leave at the end of the period. I went up to the man, the professor, I said, sir, I can't give a speech. I don't do speeches. I don't stand in front of groups and talk. He said, you have to give a speech. It's Public Speaking 101. You'll fail. I said, sir, I'm going to the dean. I'm getting out of this class. So I went to the dean of the department. He said, you have to take it with your major. It's required. I said, sir, I can't give a speech now. Is there some way I can maybe write the speech? The other professor said I write well. I write a speech. Let somebody else deliver it. They said, no, you have to give this speech. So I went on back to the class. The professor gave me a date to give my speech. I gave my 2-minute speech in 1985. The professor went crazy. He said, man, you speak well. Huh? Like I said about the one that said the writing, I don't know if he was being sincere or not. All I know is I've been public speaking since 1985. Well, that's all I needed to hear. That one person to tell me that I can speak. See, what are your kids hearing? Are your kids hearing things about themselves that they don't even know exist? Certain things, certain characteristics, certain traits they just take for granted, and here you see it and know that this kid can parlay that into a life, a way of living his or her life on his or on him or her own terms. See, are you letting them know? Third professor said to me, he said, sir, you're a leader. You're a transformational leader. Now I know I was a follower. I knew that. I don't have any problem admitting that. But I went on and led schools because a man said, you're a leader. I'm saying to us, what we say to a youngster matters because their attitudes matter. What we identify in a young person matters. I don't care if that kid been suspended multiple times. I don't care if that kid's attendance is poor. I don't care if that kid doesn't like school and doesn't like you. When we're able to put all that to the side and continue to have the will to make this kid manifest in his or her greatness, then there's such a higher probability that that kid will, in fact, be the great youngster that he was born to be. So with that being said, toward closing this attitude gap in your classroom very quickly, your students' attitudes, they matter. They matter relative to whether or not they believe in themselves, and that's where we come in. They matter relative to whether or not they believe in the prospects for their future, and whether or not they're just excited about learning. If that matters, I'll get more into that, and for those of you that come to the breakout, I'll get more into that at that time. But our attitudes matter. Certainly relative to whether or not we love children. Are we excited? Are we passionate? Are we fired up about young people? Relative to whether or not we're excited about what we do. Are we excited? Are we passionate? Are we on fire about the practice of teaching and learning? And then thirdly, are we fired up, passionate about our own professional growth and development in those areas that we may deem need improvement? Are we excited about becoming better at what we do, becoming greater at what we do? You look at an athlete, they can't wait to get into the weight room. They can't wait to get on the field and practice. They can't wait to do the things they need to do to become greater. Are we equally as excited about our own practice? I can't wait to learn more, to become great. But thirdly, our classroom climate and culture, they matter in such a big way. I'm only going to touch this. I need about 2 hours to deal with it. But in a nutshell, that word climate, I call it the mood. The mood of that school, the mood of that classroom. What do you feel when you walk into that room? I always say the best classroom is a BAM classroom. When I say BAM, I mean you walk in, the hallway is whatever it is, but when you walk into that classroom, BAM! Oh man, there's something about being in this space that just makes me feel good. It's something about being with my teacher. It's something about being in this room. It's something about all the acknowledgement and recognition and celebration of me I see on these walls. There's something about what I hear about myself in this room. There's something about what I feel, my emotion when I'm in this room. I feel emotionally safe in this room. I feel that I can just be me, express myself in terms of who I am, and not have to worry about consequences from my peers. There's something about the overall experience of this classroom that not only do I feel good here relative to the experience, but 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now, I will still have that experience with me. See, climate and culture, the mood, climate, the lifestyle, how we're living in this classroom every day. Let me close it out this way. I need to skip a page. See that guy there? Twin brother. That's me. Mr. Principal. Ooh, I didn't want to do that yet. Could you hit my volume, bring it down slightly? I want to show you something very quickly. 2 minutes and then I'm done. I had put together a video series unintentionally, and I entitled it "Message to Your Son." I was noticing across the country, boys in particular, there was a lot of work that needed to be done. And I decided, let me use as a strategy, let me make these videos and talk to these boys in these little short 4-minute videos, 4 to 6 minutes long videos on things to look out for, things to do, things to incorporate into your daily walk. And I went on and started making them and put them online, and I thought I would make 3 and be done with it. And I noticed the view count was pretty high, so I said, well, let me keep making them. So I went on up to 200 videos over the course of 3 years, and they're watched by youngsters and even the young ladies throughout the country on YouTube every day, but accessible right through principalkafele.com. This is just a 2-minute video just to give you a taste of what they look like, and if you feel that you want to see the others, just go on the website and check them out and use them as you see fit. Take a listen.
Greetings, young men. This is Principal Kafele, sitting out here on my patio in a hotel in Tampa, Florida, literally right next to the runway, so you're going to hear some planes as I'm talking. Just finished speaking to educators a few hours ago, came and changed my clothes, got a flight in about an hour or so. But as I always say, before I board that plane, I got a message for you. And that message comes in the form of a question. The question is, what is your purpose for walking into that classroom every day? Once again, young men, what is your purpose for walking into that classroom every day? Here's what I'm saying. You must have a purpose for walking into your classroom. You cannot walk into your classroom mindlessly. You cannot walk into your classroom aimlessly. You've got to have a specific reason for being there, and that is to learn. That is to maximize your potential so that you can connect your learning today with success in life later on in the future. Think about a dictionary. A dictionary is comprised of just thousands of words and definitions. And as you scan through that dictionary, you will not find a word with a blank space next to it, meaning that it is undefined. Every word in that dictionary has a definition. That means every word in that dictionary has meaning. Now let's transfer that back to your life. What I'm saying to you is your life must have a definition. Your life must have meaning. When you walk into that classroom, you must have meaning. You must have purpose. See, your purpose is your definition. Your purpose is your meaning for being in there. So you can't be in there and you're mindless, you're aimless, you're drifting, you're not focused, you're not serious, you're not diligent, you're not disciplined, you're not resilient. Those things cannot happen. They cannot be your experience in the classroom. Your experience must be that I am in fact serious. I am in fact focused, diligent, disciplined, and resilient because my life has purpose. You have taken the time with the assistance of your teachers or the assistance of your parents or other significant others and determine who you are. Define who you are. Determine your specific meaning for existing, your specific meaning for being in that classroom. You have got to walk in that very narrow path, which I call your purpose for being. Make sure that when you walk into that classroom, you are walking in your purpose every day. And throughout the period, throughout the day, you are walking in your purpose. Enough said, young men. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's get it done. Let's make it happen. This is Principal Kafele. Once again, sitting on the patio in Tampa, right next to the airport. Thanks for listening. Peace.
So in closing, that signature photo again, I want to remind all of you, I know you know, but I want to remind you, there are no two students in these high schools that are the same. They're all different. They're all bringing something different to the table every day. You and I have to be mindful of that. You and I have to differentiate as often as we possibly can. That one size fits all that we see in places, it just doesn't work. That lecture, that auditory instruction, it just doesn't work. Because each child, as Jessica said, a relationship needs to be formed. So as we forge that relationship, as we learn better how they learn, how they think, how they process information, how they make sense of information, what motivates them, what inspires them, what their goals are, what their aspirations and ambitions are, it puts us in the driver's seat. It puts us in much better position to make those connections with a diverse learning community in any given school. So again, I thank you for the opportunity. Certainly, Ms. Gail Thompson and anyone else that was responsible for me being here today. I thank you for the privilege of speaking to you for a few minutes. Those of you that may want to get in contact, just go to the website and send me an email, and I respond to all. Other than that, I wish you an extraordinary remainder of the year. Thank you, and thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Kafele, so much. And today, as you go on, this is about support of our professional learning. I'm sure you had a lot of challenge on looking through the course offerings for the day. But as you move on to the sessions, at 9:40, they'll be starting. And we just ask that if the room is already full, that you please move on to another room and grace that presenter with your participation and presence so that everyone in the room can have ample opportunity to speak. And please also thank your presenters. They all have reached out and volunteered, or were voluntold, to participate. So we appreciate all of their time in getting this ready. Thank you to Kofa High School for this wonderful auditorium and setting, and thank you all for being here.